Around every 100 years, we are seeing a massive collapse in the society, a massive change. Sometimes fiat currencies, they completely disappear and a new system is introduced. And it definitely looks like that right now we are right before the same in the same process as we have seen many times in the past. So we have seen that, for example, in 1720, the South Sea bubble and Mississippi bubble burst, causing major financial crisis in Britain and France. One of the most known ones is, of course, the Great Depression, starting around 1929, but there was a very long process building up before that 1929 crash. And guys, I actually think we can see something similar as the Great Depression right now. We are actually in the late stages of the 1920s, and that's exactly what I want to discuss with you in today's video, because what can you do? We all see we are in the midst of this huge chaotic world. We are at the end of a certain cycle. That's definitely looks like it. A lot of things are coming to the surface, like a new system, the mark of the beast, like the introduction of blockchain technology as a leading technology in society. So yeah, guys, in today's video, I want to look a little bit at 1920s till 1929. How did it look back then? You know, what was the sentiment? How did people feel? Which people did profit from it? Which crisis could we see right now? Is it war? Is it a bubble that is going to pop? We are just going to go over all of these subjects in today's video. And yeah, guys, let's first talk about the 10 years leading up to the Great Depression. So that was from 1919 up to 1929. So that's like 10 years. And we start with the post First World War economic boom that was going on from 1919 till 1923. The United States became the world's economic leader after World War I. That's also pretty interesting, because that's definitely something that they have positioned themselves for with Pearl Harbor and all these stories, of course, which right now come to light. But that's a crazy thing. There's definitely a force active on the planet. A lot of them is concentrated in the United States, that is lusting for power, and that's doing anything that it can in its ability to gain more and more power. So there were massive war debts in Europe. Germany was printing money, which eventually led to hyperinflation. This was the Weimar Republic, also very famous in the Bitcoin world, of course. Then the United States gave loans to Europe, keeping them artificially healthy financially. Well, how can you compare that to today's society? Well, after the COVID crash, after the COVID, we've seen a lot of governments printing money. This happened worldwide, but this was a similar situation that we have seen after the First World War. Then we can see that the global debt right now is at record high levels. That was also happening in the 1920s. They call it the Roaring Twenties, because things were really, it looked like the society was really thriving, but they were borrowing basically value from the future, and that is what we are doing right now. There's also geopolitical instability right now. Ukraine, Russia, in the Middle East, US-China tensions a little bit with these trade wars going on. But that's also what we've seen after the First World War. There was also a lot of geopolitical instability. So you can already see, guys, that the world right now looks pretty similar as how the world looked after the First World War and before the Great Depression, basically before that 1929. Then, guys, the Roaring Twenties, 1923 till 1929. This is where the whole bubble is created. And how did it look back then? And when I'm going to say the characteristics, you will probably think I'm talking about the time right now, but no, I'm talking about 1923 till 1929. There was easy money, low interest rates. The Federal Reserve kept rates low, leading to speculative investments, Okay, that's not really that strange. Stock market bubble, real estate bubble, and a wealth gap grew. So there was the people who are living from month to month paycheck and the rich. There becomes a bigger gap between those. Well, we are seeing exactly the same thing right now, guys. In 2020 till 2022, we have seen a long period of time with low interest rates and a lot of speculation in stocks, real estate, and crypto. Everything is going up. We have a massive housing bubble going on right now. If you look at the housing prices a couple of years ago and now, most of them doubled, if not more. So this is very similar already. Margin trading and leverage are very active, or is very popular in today's society. That was also back in 1923. People were like borrowing money and using borrowed money to go into the stock market. Again, borrowing money is already the act of borrowing value from the future to put it into something right now. There is already a disbalance in the fundamental act of borrowing money to prop up something right now. It's the same like, maybe you can, this is a good analogy. If you are using drugs, right? Some people are using certain drugs. They borrowing time or energy from the next day. So when you keep on using drugs, you need to use more and more drugs in order to get the same level of energy or a little bit higher energy. But there will come a day you will completely collapse because you have been borrowing time from the future. I cannot make a better comparison, guys. So housing bubbles are right now worldwide. Back then it was mostly in the United States. And right now we are also, I can see this also, we are seeing definitely a wealth gap that is widening. So we have people that are working from month to month. We are seeing inflation in the supermarket. They barely can pay all the bills. But then you have people that are in crypto, that are working with the stock market. They actually generating, getting quite, their portfolio is increasing over time, making quite good amounts of money. So that is, again, the rich get richer, goes to a different part of society, while the people who live paycheck to paycheck, they are actually basically screwed. But I will come later to this video, guys. I will talk about the assets that you can have, and I'm going to tell you already right now, you will not foresee the assets that I'm going to share with you later in today's video, because they are definitely not the most common assets when you go on YouTube and when people talking about this. Now, we are going to talk about the collapse, guys. How did it happen? So in 1929, the collapse started basically until 1933. So we have 1929, the stock market crash. On October 24, 1929, it was also known as Black Thursday. A lot of people were panic selling. On October 29 in 1929, the stock market dipped like over 12% in a single day. That's, of course, for the stock market. In crypto, we are kind of used to these numbers, but for the stock market, that was huge. Banks and brokers had loaned too much money on margin. Again, something that we have seen right now is what we are seeing right now as well. You can compare this maybe with the FTX crash. Maybe the FTX crash was just a small taste of what's going to come. Right, because and we heard a lot of prophecies about this as well. Crypto is going to zero, money will disappear. Yes, if the prices continue to go down and a lot of things is based on margin, is based on borrowed money, then it will basically implode. I hope this makes sense. It's like a leverage position. If you open a leverage position, but then see it in a macro perspective, there is a huge leverage position. Like Michael Saylor, for example, once that leverage position is being liquidated, suddenly all that liquidity is gone from the markets. So what we are seeing today as well, banks, hedge funds and retail traders are highly leveraged. Like even retail, we all do leverage trading. Even though you use maybe a small leverage, it's still borrowing money to get bigger profits. So if stocks and crypto markets, and I think it counts definitely for both, margin calls could trigger a similar liquidation spiral. So definitely for the stock market, like we have already seen that in the year 2000 and 2008 with the housing crisis. It just fell down like it was just free falling. The stock market was free falling. all these things were triggered and there was basically no stop. Yeah, at one moment it was going to stop, but it could be something like this. That is a smaller manifestation, that is a smaller crash, although it was quite a big crash, but that is a smaller manifestation on what we might going to see in this bigger 100-year cycle. So you gotta see, like, from the 1930s to now, we are almost 100 years past. So we are at the end of the cycle, going into a massive collapse of society, while the 2000.com bubble crash and the housing market crash were big crashes, but those were corrections in the bigger scheme of things. So I think, and even for me, guys, I think it is almost impossible for us right now to imagine the magnitude of a crash or correction that we might going to see when this 100-year cycle will come to an end. And I believe, if we look at the Banner cycle and so on, I definitely believe that we could see the start of that happening in 2026, right? And that going until 2032. So there are so many things like going like parallel with this. We have the Mark of the Beast, we have Agenda 2030. Guys, it's not for nothing that suddenly all these programs are out there. They're all focused on these years. There's all a correlation with these things. So then we have from 1930 till 1933. So that was when the stock market already went down, when we already see the start of the Great Depression. We were seeing bank failures and economic collapses. Well, we have seen a small part of that in 2008 as well, with the housing market crash. I definitely heard stories here as well in the Netherlands that some bank just completely disappeared and a lot of people lost their money. But there was in the United States was even more. But yeah, banks collapsed back in the 1930s as well. Banks collapsed as people panicked and withdrew cash. So there was a bank run. Businesses shut down, unemployment soared to 25%, which means that 1 out of every 4 people in the United States didn't have a job. I don't know what's that number exactly right now, but I could imagine we going back to that once we are done with this crash. Real estate and farm prices crashed, leading to mass foreclosures. Definitely, I think real estate will crash as well after this crisis, but farm prices maybe crash, but farmland not, which I will talk about later. And it's not for nothing that somebody right now is buying a lot of farmland. Deflation made debt worse because money became scarcer, debts became more expensive to pay off. So right now we have an inflationary world where the value of money is decreasing, right? So if you have debt or mortgage, then in a couple of years you basically have gained a little bit of value because your debt became smaller. You still pay interest, so you still pay more than you actually borrowed, but your debt became smaller in terms of purchasing power because the value of the dollar decreases. So what we are seeing today already is we have already seen some bank runs in 2023, but nothing that severe that banks really collapse. But we have seen some examples also in Europe. Debt levels are much higher today. If the economy slows, defaults could trigger mass liquidation. This is definitely a high risk. AI and automation could make unemployment even worse than the 1930s. This is pretty scary, guys, because indeed a lot of jobs right now are being taken over by computers, and maybe that is going to be the main reason why we are going to see unemployment in the next couple of years, because the adoption of this technology is also accelerating, and eventually we are going to see a high number of unemployment. It's not for nothing that they start talking right now already about universal basic income. They never tell exactly the truth. They will introduce it to you like, universal basic income because everyone deserves some form of comfort, like a standard comfort. It doesn't work like that. They don't introduce it because they like you. They introduce it because they know exactly what is going to happen, and they want to remain control over you by making you dependent. So now we are going to 1933 and 1939, that period, which is the recovery with a lot of government intervention. So the Federal Reserve launched the New Deal, which started massive government spending to create jobs. There was gold confiscation in 1933. This is pretty crazy, but the US government forced citizens to turn in gold at a fixed price. World War II saved the economy by creating massive industrial demand. Well, I don't know, probably that could be done in a different way too, but yeah, if you compare that to today's society, we have governments that might confiscate assets, like CBDCs could allow for full control of money. That's also the scary thing, where we go to an authoritarian system. War is always a tool for economic reset. US-China, Middle East conflict could escalate. Definitely, war is something that is doesn't sound too far from the agenda right now. We have definitely been mentally already prepared. This concept has already been introduced, and a third world war is, the chances that you will not experience that in your life is actually lower than that if you do experience it in your life, I believe. But you can, if you have a different opinion, please let me know in the comment section down below. A new deal like stimulus may come, universal basic income or infrastructure spending or the Green Deal, whatever they're talking about in today's society. So they come with like a new system. So maybe they come with CBDCs where they can really confiscate a lot of money that can be saved, because CBDCs can be made with a validation period. So for example, you get $1,000 on a monthly basis, but you are only allowed to spend it during that month. So if the money that you received during January is not valid for February, you get your February money on February. So in that way, they can actually extract a lot of money, and they can steer the behavior of people to don't save any money. Right? They can even program the money that, for example, 50% of your income has to be spent on food, for example. So in that way, with these rules, they can really push, for example, the agriculture system, push people to buy lots of food or maybe something else, instead of buying gold, buying crypto, and save and do self-custody and working on your individual power. Right? They want to take away that power from you. So yeah, we don't know exactly how this is going to manifest, but we can already see, and this is the whole point, we can see the similarities, and that's what it's all about, because we have to, his story doesn't repeat itself exactly, but it sure does rhyme, which means that everything is frequencies, and frequencies are cycles, and cycles always go with a certain up and down. And we are right now, so we have the dot-com bubble, housing market. These are smaller cycles. You can even have more smaller cycles, but these 100-year cycles are bigger cycles, and we have to anticipate a little bit what they are, like what these cycles generally predict. So they generally predict that there will be more suppression, more power will flow to governments, more authoritarian systems will be set in place. We already see that a little bit right now. We are already being prepared for that right now. So what are the biggest lessons, guys, and how to protect yourself? And this is going to be maybe the most interesting part of the video, although I think the first part was pretty interesting, that we have the similarities between the Roaring Twenties, the Great Depression, and the time right now. It looks like we are right before the 1929, and it's pretty a tough pill to swallow, but also brings a lot of opportunities. And yeah, it's definitely a crazy ride. It's going to be a crazy experience, I believe. So one of the things, guys, and that is what we are seeing right now, not yet, is the system always looks strong before it collapses. And if you don't understand what I mean, is when we have a bull market in Bitcoin, for example, then when we turn into a bear market, nobody can believe that we are in a bear market, because it has been already so strong for such a long amount of time. So yeah, the 1920s as well, they felt unstoppable. kind of just like today's markets, although there are many people in today's market screaming for a doomsday scenario. Massive leverage, speculation, and overconfidence are signs of an incoming crash. Yeah, I don't feel we are seeing that too much right now. We have seen that with the meme mania, right? Meme token mania. But I don't feel that right now we are seeing it. So I'm also trying to think a little bit on where we are in the cycle, and maybe we are still going to see that golden age for 1.5 years or maybe 1 year where that confidence is really built up and where we can really see things going up, and then around 2026 it's just going to completely crash and it will surprise most people, or that process is already happening right now and we will be surprised as well. I don't know, but how can you protect yourself against this? That is, hold cash, but maybe also not too much, because just like in 1929, a lot of banks crashed too, but there was a gap there as well. So the stock market first went down, and then 1930 or 1933, the banks started to crash and they became insolvent. So cash in shorter term time frame is definitely one of the best things, because you can also buy things with cash like gold, silver, crypto. So Bitcoin is going to be a good solution as well. Definitely ISO 222 tokens. We don't know eventually exactly with 100% certainty if they are going to be implemented, but it surely does look like so right now. But most importantly with all these things is that you hold them as self-custody. So you have it on a hardware wallet or something, not on an exchange, because an exchange is like a bank, and if a bank becomes insolvent, we have seen that with FTX, then people lose their money. So that's also the problem in 1930s, because a lot of people had their money in banks because they thought it was safe in banks, so it disappeared completely overnight. And governments also, right before the banks were collapsing, the governments were saying, and that we are seeing right now too, banks are fine, don't worry, you know. So the key to this whole story is, doesn't matter what you are going to buy, if it's physical gold, is it cash, is it multiple currencies, is it real estate, is it crypto, do self-custody. Make sure that you are in control of what you want to, how you want to store your wealth, basically. Government will change the rules. In 1933, the US made it illegal to own gold and forced people to sell it at a fixed price. So this is kind of crazy also when you look at Bitcoin, and that's why later in this video I will share you again another very important asset that you can have, which is more important than gold probably. But yeah, government's gonna make it illegal. So if they don't want you to have your freedom, if they don't want you to regain power, then yeah, okay, Bitcoin illegal it is, right? What can we do? In a modern crisis, they could freeze bank accounts, so they can freeze the accounts that we already own. They can force CBDCs on us and increase capital controls. Doesn't sound too far-fetched. So this is the solution to this is, don't keep all your wealth in easily controlled assets like bank accounts. Don't have all your wealth at a bank account. That doesn't work. War is the ultimate reset button. The Great Depression only ended when World War II was forced massive spending. So the World War II actually pulled people out of the Great Depression. So if you would compare that with today's society, then maybe we're first going to go into this Great Depressional type of state, and then eventually a third World War will get us out, because it will increase the spending and it will increase the jobs and stuff. Maybe. I don't know yet how I'm going to think about this. Today, the geopolitical tensions could be the next economic reset. Well, that is definitely clear that is something that's on the agenda. So right now we are in the late 1920s stage. Bubbles, debt, and growing cracks. If interest rates stay high too long, and this now it becomes interesting. If interest rates stay high too long, and they are pretty high right now, we are going to get a debt crisis, right? We are going to see the stock market collapse, and we cannot hold it any longer. Like this is basically how the system works. High interest rates, money becomes expensive, leaves the stock market, and then eventually the stock market will not have that. When a rocket launches, it has that fire to make it higher, but that fire goes off and eventually it will fall down. And once it falls, and it will trigger the liquidation events, it will trigger a liquidation cascade, free fall, waterfall type of event. So that's also, I think, the Federal Reserve cannot keep the interest rates high for too long, and that's why the president wants to lower the interest rates, because it's on the edge of collapse anyway. It's always on the edge of collapse, especially with high interest rates. So if interest rates stay high for too long, we're going to get a debt crisis. If governments print money, we're going to get hyperinflation. And if war breaks out, we are going to get a massive economic shift. So what is going to happen? Well, I think we should definitely prepare for all of these outcomes to happen. I think interest rates staying high for too long, debt crisis, I'm not seeing that directly happen, although that could be part of the plan, because if they create a debt crisis and they make money very expensive, they make everyone very, very poor. They just also extracting somewhat money out of the system by doing so. If they print money, we'll get into a situation where the dollar eventually will be hyperinflated, which can be taken over by a new world reserve currency. And a war can also be a great reset. But one of the things, guys, that I want to touch in today's video is that, first of all, how can you prepare for these type of events? And the most logical things to prepare is, of course, buy physical things, make sure that you don't have any debt, diversify, make sure you have physical cash, you have physical gold, you have physical crypto. The crypto, make sure you don't buy meme tokens and all this stuff. Just buy the top 5 crypto, or just buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP. Maybe Solana a little bit. These are the most safest one. Have some stable coins. Diversify, really diversify. Don't put your eyes on one price, like, no, I just want to have 1 million in stables and the rest not. That would be too much risk in that one stable. If you have 1 million, keep a little bit in Bitcoin, buy some XRP, keep some in stables, have some at the bank, have some physical gold, like do all of these things. But now we are going to the extra dimension of assets that you can own. And the first asset, guys, is your mindset. Your mindset is going to be so important, because if you are sitting in the right mindset, if you are feeling grateful, if you are doing well yourself, if you have internal happiness, if you have internal peace, that is most important, because you will way easier navigate through a very difficult situation when your internal state is good and it's not depending on external things, like having a certain amount of money. No, live your life with arms wide open, like live your life. Don't be afraid, don't sit in panic, don't be depressed. It's easier said than done, I get it, but this is true asset. This is a true asset. Love yourself. And that sounds very selfish, but I don't mean it in a selfish way. I mean it in a way that make life fun, make life enjoyable for yourself. And of course, a little bit of wealth here and there, and protecting wealth is important, but that will be a building block on top your fundamental state. Are you doing good? Are you feeling good? Are you energetic? Are you healthy? These things really do count. How is your mindset? Can you stand up? Can you not sit in a victim mode, but can you stand up when something difficult happens and make it a challenge? Can you love other people? These are really important questions, guys. Really important questions. Then you have the building block of wealth. But there's another building block that I'm personally very advocating for, and that is flexibility. Guys, imagine in the 1929, right before the Great Depression, if you were flexible, right? If you are a citizen of the world, that's what I'm trying to say. If you are flexible, so you can just leave in one instant. You are renting below your means, so you're not like drowning in bills, you're not like living this high luxury lifestyle which you cannot afford. If you can afford it, sure, you do it, but if you cannot afford it, just don't do it. Why should you do it? Anyway, that's a big question. But be flexible, like rent instead of own, right? If you can, unless if you maybe can own the whole house. If you can buy a house which is like 10-20% of your assets, of your total portfolio, okay, then buy it. That's diversification. But if you have 100% of everything that you own in a house and you are stuck in that house with a mortgage as well, like I don't want to scare people right now, but I think flexibility is a big asset. Like if you can leave, you can just leave today, like you can leave tomorrow to the other side of the world. And then when you sit there for 6 months, you just go to another part of the world. This is also a big asset, because replacing in different types of the world is going to be, I think, necessary as well. And we've seen that also in the Second World War. Many Germans flew to South America, but also to the United States for better life, and definitely made a great decision in doing so. Right. Also, I'm thinking sometimes when you look at countries close to the equator, right? Like you look at South America, you look at some parts of Africa, you look at some parts of Asia. Like if you would take away the existing system, what do you have left in these countries? Well, it's growing banana trees everywhere. You are seeing coconuts everywhere. It doesn't matter if you have money or not. The coconut will still grow. Nature is providing in abundance, right? But if you are sitting, for example, in the Netherlands, where I'm based right now, well, the seasons here are not the greatest for an abundance of food. It's better to move close to the equator. Well, I'm definitely open for that. Like I could move closer to the equator. I could move to South America. Definitely could do that. And that's the flexibility, and that is also a strength, because that flexibility will also improve your decision making, because you don't look through life with a tunnel. If you are stuck in a country, if you are chained somewhere, you're always biased. But if you're not chained anywhere, you can make a more objective decisions. So that's what I think. So I think maybe that's going to be the most important thing, like mindset, flexibility. And flexibility can be moving to different countries. Flexibility can be, you can see that in a much broader sense. Flexibility in changing jobs, handling with challenges, overcoming challenges. This has all to do with flexibility, and mindset is going to be the most important. If you really want to diversify and want to buy some gold, Bitcoin and stuff, maybe some farmland, you do that. But another thing of diversification can be a skill set. Having a skill set or having an online business also is, again, a diversification. So, for example, if I would have all my money in the bank, right, but I still have an online business that is generating money, right? Well, the bank will close my account. They don't like me, whatever, right? Or the government say, hey, close the account. They close the account. Okay, I still have that online business. I fly to the other side of the world. I still have the online business that's generating money. I can take care of myself. Maybe not in the luxury I had before with the bank account, but at least I'm not drowning. So these are all ways to look at this situation, and I think we should look at it really broad and not like, yeah, I'm buying some golden coins and I'm safe. That's definitely not how it works. It's part of the solution, maybe temporary, but as you could see in the Second World War and around the Great Depression, the government just say like, hey, it's illegal to own gold, you gotta give it to us. Why? Because they want the power, they want the control, they don't want you to be self-sustainable and an individual that is standing in his true authentic power. No, that is a threat. They want to keep you small. I'm not going to make this video any longer, guys, because I guess this video has been already taking pretty long. So, yeah, I can understand it's a lot of information, but I think it's a very clear story. The situation right now looks very similar as to the situation in the 1920s and 30s. And the way to diversify and prepare for this situation, for the things that are going to come, is mindset, flexibility, maybe also religion. Your connection with God is going to be very, very important. And in terms of assets, you want to diversify as much as possible and remain in control yourself, and be flexible. So if shit hits the fan, you can go. You can easily move through the planet and become a global citizen. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, leave a thumbs up. Very much appreciated. Subscribe if you are new. Wish you a beautiful day, and I hope to see every single one of you in the next video. Bye bye.